Something you spoke about earlier, something Ida Petersai touched on earlier, as he spoke about rehabilitating players. There is one such player out in, Kenya that, has befallen on hard times, a former Kenya international in George Waweru. The person to break it all down for us in the story of Jojo Waweru is our oracle in Claudia Okai, back and giving us a sad life story.
It is in these dusty beaches of Jericho where one of Kenya's finest was molded. But this also remains the same venue where he suffered his ultimate fall from grace. A sad turn of events that has typified ex-African footballers' lives across the continent. This week, I'm joined by George Waweru, famously known as Jojo, as he explains how things fell apart and how his life has taken a serious downslide. It all started out at this particular venue, Camp Toyoyo, where he learned to kick a football and discovered what became his first love. The joys of growing up and playing alongside some of Kenya's household names, such as Musa Otieno, John Baresi, Odhiambo, to name a few. This is a tale that had all the writings of an illustrious career. His opportunity to represent Kenya at the 2004 African Cup of Nations edition in Tunisia turned out to be a decision that will haunt him for the rest of his life.
Nilikuwa Camp Kasarani and nilikuwa na complain kwa Dr. Ndaba sana. Sisikii spine yangu kwa.
We were in camp in Kasarani and I was complaining to Dr. Ndaba a lot that there was something wrong with my spine. He kept saying I had slept in an awkward position, so I continued with my training and made the trip.
Ndio nilipata collision na.
Our first game was against Mali, where I collided with one of their players, and after that, I was hospitalized and went back home with a brace, and I was told I had suffered 3 fractures on my spine, and if I continued playing football, I would be paralyzed from the waist down.
Paralyzed from the waist down.
But his narration of events is one characterized by mixed fortunes that can only be best described as disheartening.
All I can say is, the only friend who was with me then was alcohol, because everyone had run away from me, and I was left alone. But later, I came to realize alcohol was not everything.
On the other hand, for one man who grew up with him, he believes something has to change in order to turn around the fortunes.
First of all, let me say it's paramount and it's mandatory that every team should have, insurance cover for their players, because this is a game, and when it comes to a game, players are prone to injuries, and we do not want to see this instance where a player is injured, that's the end of the career. We want to see them, once they're injured, they're taken to hospital and everything is catered for.
As for former renowned Harambee Stars winger Simeon Mulama, who operates under the umbrella body Kenya Footballers Welfare Association, they look to set up structures to avoid such adversity.
What we are trying to do is to try and involve as much as possible ex-players who have been far away from soccer or maybe have had such misfortunes, bring them close to Kefwa, encourage them to interact and participate in community-based projects.
And as Jojo heads back to a place where he calls home, he has a word of advice to the active players and many hopefuls that are part of this beautiful game.
An advice for Kenya.
I would like to advise the Kenyan players that life is hard. So the little they get, they should invest in real estate, that is land. They should do it now, because football is a short-term career.
The reasons for such kind of misfortunes remain varied, and the blame game is something that will always take the center stage. But maybe it's time for us to stop asking the questions and find the answers. Until we find the solution, this remains a constant thorn in African football. Thank you for finding the time to join me. Till next week, remember to stay on side.